Okay, helpful hints for cutting. I have some older friends who are quilters, and they have helped me out with suggesting helpful hints for new quilters for different parts of cutting and sewing and other things. Today I'm talking about cutting fabric, and I already have some fabric laid out on my cutting board. The reason I have this one all laid out like this is this fabric may be the border of the next quilt that I make. Because it is a possibility for the border, I have washed it and pressed it, and then I have folded it so that this is the length. I've folded it so that the lengthwise of the fabric is going this way. This is the selvage. Selvage. And since I think I might use it for the border, I am going to cut a big hunk off of this piece of fabric before I start cutting into strips to use inside the quilt. So I have it laid out, and I have put it at the very edge of my mat so that I can measure off. I think I'm going to measure off about 20 inches. Usually I don't use my cutting mat numbers for much measuring, but I do in certain instances, and this is one. I'm going to use this 20 on either side of the mat because I have it folded, and then I'm going to use a long ruler, 6.5 by 24.5, and now mine is rather old, but I do suggest that when you use if you want accurate cutting, you need to have good tools. And this is a good ruler to have. It's a necessary ruler, I think, if you're going to make very many quilts. You also need an accurate or a good sharp rotary cutter. And I try to change my blades quite often. This is the kind that I like. But good tools are important. So I'm going to lay this ruler at the 20 lines, and then I am going to hold my ruler. Now if you come over here a little closer, you might see I am going to, this time I'm measuring from the 20 lines. It's not all that necessary that I am exactly 20 inches. I'm just trying to give myself plenty of fabric this way. But to hold my ruler steady, I don't just put my hand on top. I always put my pinky finger, over to the far right side. Well, far left side, I guess, because I'm right-handed. And then I use my little finger to hold that ruler straight. And if you're just cutting one time, I don't really usually have to move it much. If I were cutting a very long way, maybe I would have to reposition my hand, but not the fabric. So I'm going to cut all the way across. Before I do anything else, I'm going to pull the other fabric this way, and it's cut fine. Sometimes if you make a goof, or if you have a rough blade, it will catch. And if you pull from this side, then you don't have a problem with it messing all up and getting rough on you. So this fabric is what I'm going to use inside the quilt. This fabric is going to be put away in the box, and I'm going to label it as a border, 20 inches for border. Okay, there's some other fabric that I have laid out here. Fabric that needs to be cut. This also will need to be cut into 2-inch strips, but I wanted to show you how I fold it. This fabric I have pressed, and this has the length of the fabric going this way. So I'm cutting crosswise on it. And once I have it pressed and laid out, here's the selvage edge up here. Let's see if I can move that down. Selvage edge, and then I fold the fabric and I pretty much eyeball it, but you want about the same amount. I don't bring my fold all the way up to the selvage. I just bring it, well, maybe a half an inch. Oh, this is probably 3/4 of an inch away from the selvage. And then this is rough right here, so I want to cut that, and I don't want that. I have the big ruler at the bottom. He's lined along the edge of the fold. I have the yellow ruler. This is a smaller ruler and it only goes to 3 inches, but I'm only going to be cutting 2 inches. I think I might even scoot him down because, you know, fabric is expensive. We don't want to waste too much. So I have this one lined up, and now I can remove this for the moment and put my finger on the edge here and cut there. And then move that out of the way. This time I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip, laying this on the 2-inch line right on the, well, it's the 1-inch line, but it's going to cut me 2 inches. Whenever you're cutting fabric, the more ruler that you have on top of your fabric, the safer you are in getting a nice straight cut. So now I have one strip that's 2 inches. I need a couple more, I think. So I am going to use this ruler. This ruler is so big it's hard to see. I'm going to use this ruler. I often will use a ruler like this if I can, because the more ruler I have on top of the fabric, the better. I line my line up, the 4 line. I'm going to line it up right on the very edge of the fabric. And now this ruler is a little hard to hold the very edge back here, so I am going to hold it right here in the middle. And I would probably use my longer ruler if I could stretch it all the way out and not get in the way. Okay, there's one 2-inch or two 2-inch strips. Now I'm going to go to the 2 line, line it up, and cut. Now, if I needed lots of these, I could keep cutting right along, but now I need to subcut these strips into smaller pieces. I think they're to be cut at 4 1/4. So I'm going to lay them down. Again, yeah, let's use this. Again, this is a selvage edge, so I don't want that. So I'm going to lay the ruler on a line just to cut off the selvage. And then flip him around, and now I can cut several 4-inch hunks off of here. If you have a ruler, if you are using a ruler and you're often cutting the same line, I've seen rulers where you can mark it and use a little bit of tape there to show. I pretty much have gotten used to the fact of I can see my 4-inch line, but those any little helpers that you find that you like, oh, and I don't want 4 inches, I want 4 1/4. So these are too short. Don't do that. Make sure you get the right length. Here's 4 1/4. There you go. These will work, and I have 4 of them. So I will pull this over and go again. I think I might use this smaller ruler now. Sometimes a yellow ruler will work better on certain fabrics. Sometimes I'll use the yellow dot rulers, the Omnigrip, and sometimes I will use the others, but it's what you're cutting on, and this one I think I can see it better on this. Okay, now I'm using some different fabric to cut some squares to make some half square triangles. So I have folded my fabric so that this is the selvage. I think I only bought a half yard of this. And I folded it so that the selvage lines all match up nice and neat. I only need 3 squares that are 4 inches square each. So I put my ruler on the fabric. I'm going to need 4 inches. There's the 4-inch line. And remember, I have the selvage. I don't want that selvage in my square, so I am going to put the line across the fold right here. And then here's the 4-inch line, and that gives me ample room not to have any selvage. So I'm putting my finger up on my little finger on the edge. Let me scoot this back so we can see. The finger is on, my little finger's right there. I'm going to hold my ruler sort of like a spider hold, but not flat down because then it might slip. But with my finger on there, and use my rotary cutter to cut right along this edge. Don't move your ruler. Pick up this part of your fabric and move it out of the way. Now you can pick up your ruler, flip this around, and we need 4 inches. So now my ruler needs to be at the line right up here and the 4-inch line right here. The line needs to be on the fabric, not over to the side. And measure twice, cut once. So I often will check to make sure this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Put my hand down, finger on the edge to hold that ruler nice and steady, and cut off the selvage. Now then, I have a smaller piece. So once again, now I can use a smaller ruler. And I often do when I'm cutting squares. I will take my square ruler and lay it down so that there's a line there, a line that's lining up at the both cut edges. And I'm leaving a little bit extra because this is the rough edge there. I don't want to try to get that lined up. And again, I'm cutting two now. My finger is on the edge of the square ruler just like it was on the long ruler. Cut that side, flip the square around, and cut on this side, on the right side. This would be the same thing, only turn around if you're left-handed. So I have 2, and now I only need 1 more, so I'm going to open up my fabric, lay this right at the line, and it's lining up here, here, here. Hold the ruler, cut right against the side. Now I have 3 squares, and I'm ready to cut the other fabric to go with it.